The days that followed marked a turning point in the unfolding geopolitical drama between Kash Patel and Ibrahim Traoré, the defiant leader of Burkina Faso. As the world remained captivated by the war of words, a quieter, more profound transformation began to take shape on the ground in West Africa. Far from the spotlight of Washington's media storm and diplomatic posturing, Ibrahim's government was steadily implementing reforms that few outside the country had anticipated. These weren't grand declarations meant for headlines. They were calculated, strategic measures rooted in deep understanding of the local terrain, culture, and the complex dynamics of regional instability. Armed groups that had long plagued Burkina Faso's northern and eastern borders began to face organized resistance like never before. Local security forces, once scattered and poorly coordinated, now operated with renewed discipline and cohesion. Training had improved. Morale was visibly higher. Communities that had lived in fear for years slowly started to regain a sense of security. Night markets reopened. Children began returning to schools in conflict-prone areas. Where there was once fear and fragmentation, a new sense of unity and resolve began to emerge. Quiet, but unmistakably powerful. International observers, initially skeptical of Ibrahim's leadership, started taking notice. Reports began surfacing, first quietly, then more frequently, about successful counterinsurgency operations and improved intelligence coordination. The African Union issued a subtle but significant statement acknowledging measurable improvements in security infrastructure within Burkina Faso. Even some Western analysts, previously aligned with Kash Patel's harsh critique, began to question whether his assessment had been too hasty, too dismissive of local agency. Meanwhile, Kash Patel, thousands of miles away in Washington, grew increasingly restless. His narrative, once so dominant in policy circles and media discourse, was now beginning to fray at the edges. Though he continued to double down in public, calling for tougher sanctions, greater scrutiny, and increased diplomatic pressure, he could not ignore the quiet shift happening in global sentiment. Within African diplomatic circles, Ibrahim Traoré's name was no longer spoken with caution or criticism, but with growing admiration. He was being seen not as a reckless populist, as Kash had painted him, but as a bold reformer, unafraid to challenge neo-colonial frameworks while delivering real, tangible progress. In Burkina Faso, Ibrahim remained characteristically silent, letting results speak where rhetoric could not. He issued no direct response to Patel's latest provocations. Instead, he continued visiting local provinces, listening to elders, reviewing development projects, and quietly bolstering his alliances within the region. Behind closed doors, trusted advisors like Serdio coordinated logistics and gathered intelligence, not for show, but for substance. Ibrahim's strategy was unfolding like a master chessboard, each move deliberate, each silence intentional. And so, the global narrative began to shift, not with bombast, but with steady momentum. Journalists like Sarah Bennett, now on the ground, in Ouagadougou, documented these changes in powerful detail. Her reports began challenging the Western portrayal of the situation, highlighting the resilience and resourcefulness of a nation reclaiming its autonomy. Headlines began to change tone. Words like turnaround, resurgence, and independent path replaced the usual tropes of instability and fragility. The silent battle between Kash and Ibrahim had evolved far beyond words. One man was trying to shape perception through pressure and policy. The other was reshaping reality through perseverance and action. And while the final chapter had yet to be written, one thing had become undeniably clear to the watching world. Ibrahim Traoré was no longer just reacting to history, he was starting to make it. The momentum of the silent war between Kash Patel and Ibrahim Traoré reached its tipping point when Sarah Bennett's explosive investigative report was published in one of the world's most respected and widely circulated newspapers. The headline alone was enough to send shockwaves through diplomatic circles. Burkina Faso, the silent transformation that defies the West's narrative. The article, grounded in meticulous research and filled with verified on-the-ground evidence, exposed a startling contrast between perception and reality. Sarah's words painted a portrait of a nation undergoing a profound metamorphosis under the leadership of a man many had dismissed too quickly. The report went far beyond surface-level observations. It included testimonials from villagers who now felt safe walking at night, local leaders who praised new collaborative security efforts, and international observers who confirmed a drop in violent incidents across key regions. The transformation was not merely theoretical, it was measurable, observable, and most importantly, undeniable. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership was not driven by theatrics or performative diplomacy. Instead, it was rooted in pragmatism, deep cultural awareness, and an unyielding commitment to his people's sovereignty. Kash Patel was blindsided. He had anticipated criticism. What leader or strategist doesn't? But he had not expected such a thoroughly researched, widely respected exposé to dismantle his narrative so completely. The report spread like wildfire, republished by major outlets, discussed by political analysts, and praised by human rights organizations. Social media lit up with hashtags in support of Ibrahim, while many who had previously aligned with Kash began to distance themselves. His foundation of influence began to crack. Desperate to regain control of the spiraling narrative, Kash hastily organized another press conference. But gone was the fire and swagger of previous appearances. This time his voice was defensive, his arguments uncertain. He attempted to discredit Sarah's article, accusing it of bias, manipulation, and even questioning her sources. But his tone lacked conviction. The media, once attentive, now scrutinized every word, sensing the unraveling of a man who had misjudged both his adversary and the global stage. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré made his most decisive move yet. With quiet confidence and strategic timing, he announced the launch of an international conference on security and development in West Africa. The event was more than symbolic. It was a masterstroke. Invitations were extended to regional leaders, global NGOs, economists, and journalists from around the world. The message was unmistakable. Burkina Faso was no longer a country to be pitied or criticized. It was a country to be engaged with. Ahmed Diarra, the well-connected businessman who had long walked a tightrope between Western investors and local allegiances, played a vital role in orchestrating the economic side of the summit. He worked tirelessly to bring hesitant financiers to the table, many of whom were now willing to reconsider their stance in light of the country's demonstrable progress. The conference was a resounding success. It showcased streamlined security, forces, empowered local leadership, and new agricultural and infrastructure projects, each one a testament to a future taking shape. The highlight of the event came when Ibrahim stepped onto the stage to deliver his keynote address. There was no bombast, no rhetorical warfare. Instead, he spoke with calm authority about unity, regional collaboration, and the importance of respecting African agency. "We do not seek validation," he said. "We seek partnership. We do not wish to replicate the systems of others. We wish to build our own, rooted in our values and realities." The audience erupted in applause, and the speech was replayed across international networks. Sarah Bennett, attending the conference, managed to secure a brief yet profound second interview with Ibrahim. She asked him how he had remained so composed in the face of relentless public attacks. Ibrahim offered a simple, powerful reply. "The truth speaks louder than any accusation. My duty was never to argue, it was to serve. My people are my voice." That quote would become the centerpiece of her follow-up article, which delved into Ibrahim's philosophy of leadership, a blend of humility, vision, and unshakable purpose. Ahmed Diarra's fortunes also turned dramatically. The confidence displayed during the summit translated into new investment deals, infrastructure projects, and expanded economic cooperation. Investors who once wavered on the edge of withdrawal were now competing for a foothold in what was being described as West, Africa's rising star. For Ahmed, it was clear. Ibrahim's patience and resolve had opened doors once thought permanently closed. As for Kash Patel, the walls closed in. Isolated and politically weakened, he now faced internal scrutiny from his own government. High-ranking officials demanded explanations. How had he failed to anticipate the consequences of his inflammatory rhetoric? Why had he relied on outdated intelligence? Why had he underestimated a leader who clearly understood the pulse of his nation far better than any foreign analyst? Kash tried to pivot, blaming media manipulation and insinuating a coordinated effort to undermine him. But his credibility was gone. His words no longer commanded respect. For the first time, he stood not as a policymaker shaping the narrative, but as a cautionary tale of arrogance unchecked by insight. With the global tide now firmly in his favor, Ibrahim Traoré moved to finalize his legacy move. He unveiled an ambitious national plan, a vision to turn Burkina Faso into a model of sustainable development for all of West Africa. The plan focused on green energy, agricultural modernization, youth empowerment, and cross-border economic cooperation. It was bold, optimistic, and comprehensive. And most importantly, it was backed by a nation whose spirit had been reignited. Thus, what began as a war of words had ended in a profound shift of global perception. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just win a political confrontation. He emerged as a statesman of a new era, a leader not forged in media battles but in silent determination and unshakable purpose.